I've started recording. So hopefully you all got a chance to see yesterday's lecture. And what we discussed is that instead of proving Krotowski's theorem, which is about subdivisions of K33 and K5, we will actually prove Wagner's theorem, which is about minors of K5 and K33, which is a weaker notion of graph containment. So if a graph contains another graph, if a graph G contains another graph J as a minor, it may not contain J as a subdivision. But if it contains J as a subdivision, that it does contain J as a minor. Okay, so we discussed those things yesterday. Right, so we will be proving this, what seems like a weaker result than Krotowski's theorem, Wagner's theorem. However, Wagner's theorem implies Krotowski's theorem, as you will be proving on assignment 3. Okay, I haven't announced the assignment yet, but I'll be announcing it in the next couple days. All right, so we already discussed that for proving Wagner's theorem, we are first reducing the problem to 3 connected graphs, which means that if you prove it for 3 connected graphs, then you have proved it for all graphs, right? So that reduction we discussed briefly yesterday. I will discuss it again today, later. But assuming step 1, we just now need to prove Wagner's theorem for 3 connected graphs. So I want to start with that today, so that we are not rushing in this part, which is essentially the most important part in graph planarity as far as this course is concerned. Okay, so I want to start with proving Wagner's theorem for 3 connected graphs. In particular, we want to show that if we have a 3 connected non-planar graph, then it has a K5 or K33 minor, the difficult direction of Wagner's theorem. Okay, good. So what are the ingredients we are going to need for proving Wagner's theorem? Let me just briefly mention them. We are going to use Thomason's theorem, which says that you can always find an edge so that you contract it and you get a smaller 3 connected graph, so long as your original graph has at least 5 vertices. Okay, we are going to use corollary 10.8, which says that if you have a 3 connected plane graph, you take any vertex Z, you delete that vertex and look at the resulting graph, which will be planar. It is a plane graph again. So all the neighbors of the vertex you deleted, they lie on one facial cycle of H minus Z. Okay, so I've written the corollary here. Okay, so the way we proved this is we've proved that a non-separable graph, plane graph, all the faces are bounded by cycles. And so when you have a 3 connected graph, you can delete a vertex and you will get a non-separable graph. So that's why the result holds. So this is a corollary of what we proved for non-separable graphs using ear decompositions. And the final ingredient we are going to need is the whole discussion on bridges. In particular, we will use the fact that whenever 2 bridges overlap, either they are skew or they are equivalent 3 bridges. Okay, so these are the 3 ingredients we will be needing. Okay, good. So let's start with our non-planar 3 connected graph, and we want to show that the graph has a K5 or K33 minor. All right, so we'll proceed by induction on the number of edges of the graph. In Bondi-Murthy, they go with vertices, but I find edges to be more convenient. The argument is the same though. Okay. So first of all, notice that every graph on 4 vertices or less is planar. That you can check by hand. So you can assume that the graph has at least 5 vertices. Okay. So the number of vertices is at least 5, since otherwise G is planar, which would be a contradiction. Okay, in particular, K4 is planar. So all of its subgraphs are planar. Good. Also, we may assume the graph is simple because a graph is planar if and only if its underlying simple graph is planar. Okay. So if there are multiple edges, remove a multiple edge, the graph is still non-planar or loops, and apply induction. So there is a minor in the graph after removing the multiple edge or loop, and so there is a minor in the original graph. Okay, so also G is simple, otherwise done by invoking the induction hypothesis. Okay, good. All right, so we have a simple three connected planar graph. Let's take a planar embedding of this graph. So let G tilde be a planar embedding of G, right? It's worth noting that because it is a simple three connected graph, sorry, my bad. It is not a planar graph. Okay, sorry, that was a mistake. I skipped ahead of myself. Okay, so we have a non-planar graph, so we can't take a planar embedding of that. Good. We are going to now use immediately Thomason's result, that there is an edge that you can contract and then you can get a planar graph. Okay, so by Thomason's result 9.10, there exists an edge E such that when you contract the edge E, you get a three connected graph. Okay. Now, if G contract E, let's give it a name, H. H is G contract E. And let Z denote the contraction vertex. Okay. And let's also give the edge E the two ends, X and Y. Okay, so we have contracted an edge and we have gotten the smaller graph H, which is three connected. If H is non-planar, then you're done by induction, right? If H is non-planar, then it is a three connected graph. So by the induction hypothesis, H has a K5 or K3 minor. Since you obtained H from G by contracting an edge, K5 or K3 is also a minor of the graph G. Okay, so if H is non-planar, then we are done by invoking the induction hypothesis. Okay, so when I write I dot H dot, I mean induction hypothesis. Okay, so I won't write down all the details, but you get the point. So we may assume, in fact, we may suppose that H is planar, right? That's the case we need to deal with. Now suppose that H is planar. Okay, so H is a planar three connected graph. I claim that H is also simple, although we don't really need it. I would like to use this to make things a bit more crisp. I claim that H is also simple. Can someone tell me why H is simple? So H is a three connected simple planar graph. Why is it simple? Is it simple? Give me a second. Is that true? If I contract an edge, actually I might be fooling myself. I could get something like this. Okay, sorry. H may not be simple. Okay, let's not state that. It is a three connected planar graph. We don't need the fact that it is simple. A loop might be formed, but it won't affect planarity. Loops will in fact not be formed because the original graph is simple. So to get a loop in the new graph, you need multiple edges in the original graph, right? When you contract an edge, if you want to get a loop, that means that you had an edge joining the two, but that would mean that you had multiple edges in the original graph. The problem is that you might get parallel edges in the new graph, which would correspond to triangles in the original graph. So actually loops won't be there, but it might have multiple edges. But anyways, as I said, we don't need it. It's a three connected planar graph. Just for the sake of information, it is loopless, but may have parallel edges. Okay, but anyways, we won't be bothered by it. What we know, it is a three connected planar graph. So I can take a planar embedding of the graph H. So
Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Anand.
Sir, so say that we have parallel edges. Even then, we can just work on the underlying simple graph, right?
That is true. Right, but I want to go back to the graph G. So I don't want to get rid of the parallel edges, because when I go from H to G, those parallel edges may not be parallel again. They might become regular edges of the graph G. So that's why I don't want to get rid of those edges.
Sir, I can say that the new graph after removing the parallel edge is H1. So H is planar if and only if H1 is planar, right?
That is true. Yes. So what you're saying is true. H is planar if and only if the underlying simple graph of H is planar. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. So we just need to prove it for the simple version of the graph.
While this is true, I'm still going to keep the parallel edges. I don't want to get rid of them because I want to prove the statement for the graph G, right? So I don't want to get rid of the parallel edges here. Okay. So this statement is true, but I still want to prove something about the original graph having a subdivision of K5, sorry, a minor of K5 or K33. So that's why I don't want to get rid of the parallel edges. But it might be worth thinking about, what if you get rid of the parallel edges and then try to run the same proof? Does everything work out? So I'll have to think a bit more about that. Yeah. So let's not throw them away right now. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to throw them away because then I have to be careful about arguing about the graph G if I throw away some more edges. I want to keep G and H as similar as possible. So let's keep the parallel edges. All we have done is we have contracted one edge. Okay. So let H tilde denote a planar embedding of the graph H, which is a three connected planar graph. Okay, so let's make a quick drawing here. Oh, okay, maybe not. Let me wait a bit. So now what I want to do is now I want to invoke corollary 10.8. I want to look at this contraction vertex Z, and I want to apply this corollary on this graph H and the vertex Z. Okay, so what can I say? The Z is the contraction vertex, right? All of its neighbors will belong to a cycle. So it may not be, the cycle may have other vertices. I don't care about that. So let me put wavy lines indicating that these are not all the vertices of the cycle. Okay, I have a three connected planar graph. So all the neighbors of the vertex Z will lie on a face of H tilde minus Z. So I'm invoking corollary 10.8. All neighbors of Z lie on a facial cycle C of the graph H tilde minus Z. Right, so delete this vertex and look at the non-separable graph that you get after deleting this vertex. All its faces are bounded by cycles. So this vertex that you deleted, well, it has to, the point corresponding to this vertex has to be in one of those faces. And so you put it back, and now all the neighbors have to lie on the facial cycle in H tilde minus Z, right? So essentially we went through the proof of corollary 10.8. Okay, good. And let's say facial cycle, let's say the face bounded by C is F. Okay, so what is F again? It is exactly the face you get when you delete the vertex Z, right? Or maybe I shouldn't draw these. Right, so this is basically the face F, and the vertex Z is a point here. Okay. Good. And this is our cycle C. Okay. And how did we get to this graph? We got here by contracting one edge, and that contraction vertex became the vertex Z. So let's draw G, right? It's again the same stuff. So the graph G looks like this. You have the edge E, you have a vertex X, you have a vertex Y, and all the neighbors that are, all the edges that are going to Z are going to one of X and Y. So if I have 7 edges, 4 of them could be going to X, 3 of them could be going to Y, right? And this is how you got the graph H, by contracting the edge E. Okay. But there is a strange thing that is happening, right? We have a non-planar graph, we contract one edge, and we get a planar graph. So why is this happening? And this is where we want to find the K5 or K33 subdivision. So what we are going to do, oh, sorry, minor. We are going to find a K5 or K33 minor in the graph G based on the information we have, right? All right, good. So one way to think about this is think about deleting the edge E and look at the two vertices X and Y and the neighbors. Okay, so I also want you to look at G minus E. This is basically for the sake of establishing some notation. So I have the vertex X and I have the vertex Y, and I have some edges going out like this. Okay, and notice that the cycle C has two bridges in this graph G minus E. One bridge containing the vertex X and another bridge containing the vertex Y. And there are other bridges because this is not the whole graph. This is just a part of the graph, right? But in particular, we have got two bridges, one containing X and one containing Y. So let Bx be the bridge of C in the graph G minus E containing X, and let By be the bridge of C in G minus E containing Y. Okay, so we have a bunch of graphs here, but they are all related to each other, right? So I claim that these two bridges must overlap. So quick claim, Bx and By overlap. Can anybody explain why they overlap? And again, we are looking at, so there is a question, C is not a facial cycle. C is a facial cycle in the graph H minus Z. Does that answer your question, Anand?
Like, what about in G minus E?
In which graph? In G minus E. We don't know if it is a facial cycle in G minus E. Right? So the only plane
Okay.
graphs here are H tilde and H tilde minus Z. The other two graphs, G and G minus E, are the abstract graphs. Right? So we are not looking at planar embeddings because we don't know, well, G is non-planar, and G minus E, we don't know if it is planar or non-planar. In fact, you can assume that G minus E is non-planar because, sorry. You can assume that G minus E is planar because if G minus E were non-planar, then again by induction hypothesis, G minus E would have a K5 or K33 minor, and so G would have K5 or K33 minor. So just as a note, but we don't care about this fact, we may assume that G minus E is also planar. But as I said, we don't actually care about this. Like, we won't be using this in the proof. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. So my claim is that the two bridges Bx and By overlap in the graph G minus E. So they are bridges of the cycle C in the graph G minus E. And my claim is that they must overlap. Can anybody explain why they must overlap? An intuitive explanation is good enough.
So in that case, G will also be planar.
Exactly. If they don't overlap, then you can get a planar embedding of the graph G, right? Because you just look at your graph, you just look at this plane graph. This is a plane graph. So if they don't overlap, it means that X, so what does it mean to not overlap? It means that all the attachment vertices of X, which means all the neighbors of X, they lie on a common segment, on one segment induced by the vertex Y. So it looks something like this. So this is what it means for the bridges to not overlap. That the four vertices that are neighbors of X in our example, they first appear consecutively on the cycle, and then the other three vertices, neighbors of Y, appear consecutively on the cycle after them, right? This is exactly what it means for the bridges to not overlap, right? So we can assume that they overlap because we know that so this would be planar, and if this is planar, then I can put the edge E back in and the graph G would be planar, right? So if not, then G minus E is planar since we can get an embedding from H tilde minus Z. Okay. And then G is also planar because your drawing will look something like this. You will have X joined to some vertices, Y joined to some other vertices. And clearly you can now add the edge E back in the picture and the whole graph will be planar. Okay. So contradiction. Okay. So that's the proof of the claim. So since they overlap, well, now we apply the other result we know. Whenever two bridges overlap, it's because either they are skew, and whenever they are not skew, they are overlapping three bridges. So what was that theorem number? Let's just make sure, 10.25. By theorem 10.25, either Bx and By are skew in the graph G minus E, or they are equivalent three bridges. Okay. And now let's just make drawings and find our K5 and K33. Okay. So what does it mean for them to be skew? So now I'm just going to make, okay, let me just draw X and Y. X is here, Y is here. To be skew means it looks like this. You can find these 4 attachment vertices, right, as per the drawing I have made. I won't even say it out in words. But now let's add the edge E back into the picture. Clearly, in order to find the K33 or K5 minor, you have to use the edge E, right? Because otherwise the graph is planar. So we are going to use the edge E. And now what we have is actually a subdivision of K33. So this is actually a subdivision of K33. Does everybody see it? What the graph we have in front of our eyes is nothing but a subdivision of K33. Right? So this is the case when they are skew. And when they are equivalent 3 bridges, you have these 3 vertices of attachment. You have the guy X joining to all 3. And you have the guy Y joining to all 3. But then X and Y are joined to each other. And so what we have here is a subdivision of K5. Right? So interesting. We actually found subdivisions of K5 and K33. I will discuss a bit more about this later. Why are we not proving Krotowski's theorem? Why are we proving Wagner's theorem? Okay, so we got subdivisions of K5 and K33. This is the equivalent 3 bridges case. Okay. And so in particular, G has a K33 minor, because if you have it as a subdivision, then you also have it as a minor, or G has a K5 minor. So in fact, in the proof, we found a subdivision of K33 in G, and we found a subdivision of K5 in G. And this completes the proof. And this raises the question, why is this not a valid proof of Krotowski's theorem? If we found subdivisions, why do we need Wagner's theorem? Before we go to this question, are there any concerns pertaining to the proof? Right? So clearly we have proved Wagner's theorem, but are there any questions or concerns? Anything that was not clear? This is one of the main proofs of this course, so let's not leave any room for doubts or what's the word I'm looking for? Skepticism. Any questions or concerns? Is everything crystal clear or crystal planar, if you like? Good. All right. So since there are no questions or concerns, the question is, why have we not proved Krotowski's theorem? Why have we proved Wagner's theorem, which is apparently a weaker result? Anybody? Where in this proof are we doing something that does not allow us to claim that this is not a proof of Krotowski's theorem? That does not allow us to claim that this is a proof of Krotowski's theorem. The problem with using too many knots. No? No guesses? Okay. So, since there are no guesses, let me tell you what it is. It's this part here. We are contracting an edge to get the smaller graph. When you contract an edge, you preserve minors, but you don't necessarily preserve subdivisions. So if a graph has, if a graph G has a graph J as a subdivision, let's say, well, let me put it in the context of this result. So if H has J as a subdivision, then G may not have J as a subdivision. And maybe find an example for yourself. Okay, so this is the main reason this is not a proof of Krotowski's theorem, because if we are proving Krotowski's theorem, we cannot just contract an edge and proceed the way we are proceeding. This is the reason we are actually proving Wagner's theorem, and you need another step to show that Wagner's theorem implies Krotowski's theorem. Okay, is that part, does that make sense? All right. So in this case, let's move on to our discussion of step 1. So we have proved Wagner's theorem for 3 connected graphs, and I claim that proving Wagner's theorem for 3 connected graphs proves it for all graphs. Okay. So the fact that we are not going to deal with graphs that are not that are separable. Okay, so that one is a very easy step. So it's quite easy to show that you just need to look at non-separable graphs. So I won't even worry about cut vertices or separating vertices, right? So let's start with graphs that are non-separable, and let's discuss why the theorem we have proved proves it for all non-separable graphs. Okay. Okay, so there are 2 lemmas we discussed yesterday. I'll just briefly mention them again. So we have a non-separable graph with a 2 vertex cut S. Okay. Then the claim is that each marked S component is a minor of G. Okay. So how do you prove this result? Well, I won't even write down the whole proof. These are very easy results. So if this is my 2 vertex cut S, and I get some components after deleting it, okay, what this result is saying is that if I look at any marked component, so what is a marked component? Let's say this is H, then I take H along with S, the graph induced by these vertices, along with a new edge here. So the claim is that this graph J is a minor of the graph G. So to show, J is a minor of G. In fact, you can prove something stronger. I claim that J is actually, you can find a subdivision of J in the graph G. Because what you would do is you would just find a path between these 2 vertices in one of these components. Because the original graph is non-separable, you can find a path. And now, so let's call this path P. And observe that H union P is a subdivision of J. So G has a J subdivision, and this implies that G has a J minor. Right? So in particular, well, J here is our marked as component. Okay. And why is this good? Well, minors are transitive. So if a marked as component has a K5 or K33 minor, then the graph G will also have a K5 or K33 minor. Okay. In particular, if J has a K5 or K33 minor, then G has a K5 or K33 minor. In fact, you can make a stronger statement. I'm being lazy. If J has a K5 minor, then G has a K5 minor, and similarly for K33. So you don't really need the OR. Okay. And then there is another lemma we need for the reduction to three connected graphs, which is the other direction. So this is preserving minors. And now we also want to preserve the planarity or non-planarity, right? So again, we have a non-separable graph with a two vertex cut S. Then G is planar if and only if each of its marked as components is planar. So again, we have the same situation. We have a set S with two vertices. We have a bunch of components. And we know that all the marked components, so let's prove one direction. If the graph G is planar, so this is the easy direction. Well, easier. They are both easy, actually. If G is planar, then each marked component is planar, because each marked component by the previous lemma is a minor of the graph G. And we know that minors of planar graphs are planar, right? That is something we discussed yesterday. So this direction is done by previous lemma. So we just need to prove the other direction. So if all the components, if all the marked as components are planar, then the whole graph is planar. Okay. So we know that this graph is planar. We know that the other graph is planar. Let me just draw three components. Okay. And we know that this graph is also planar. Let me draw the figures so that they are indicative of what we are doing. Okay. So if all of these are planar, then we want to prove that the graph G is planar, right? And turns out you don't need to deal with all three at a time. You can deal with two at a time. You can first show that the union of these two graphs is planar, and then you can include the next component inductively. So what I would like you to do is prove the following. If G1 and G2 are planar graphs, and their intersection is K2, right? So they have one edge in common. Then the claim is that the union of the graphs is also planar. In fact, it's quite easy to prove. Let's just do it. So we know that these two are planar graphs. We have a common edge. So you can make that edge on the boundary of the outer face. You can always do that for any edge, because any face can be made the outer face, right? So you can get a planar embedding like this, where this is your common edge. And similarly, you can get a planar embedding of the other graph where this is on the outer face. And now you just combine the two drawings. So this is your G1, this is G2, and now you have a planar embedding of G1 union G2. Okay, so the whole trick is to keep the edge on the outer face, and once it is on the outer face, you can just amalgamate the two drawings to get a planar drawing of the graph G. Okay, and if you now apply this repeatedly, then you can prove that if all the marked as components are planar, then the whole graph is planar. Okay, so invoke repeatedly, or if you like, essentially this is induction. Induction on the number of marked as components. Okay, so that's how you prove these two results. And what good are these? Let's take a quick example. So why does this mean that you have proved Wagner's theorem for all non-separable graphs and therefore for all graphs? So if I give you a non-separable graph, I just want to give you a visual. So if I give you a non-separable graph G, if it is 3 connected, then we have proved Wagner's theorem, it is done. So if it is not 3 connected, you have these two vertex cuts, right? So G is non-planar, and we want to find a K5 or K33 minor. So in the graph G, you might have a 2 vertex cut. So you construct that tree where you look at all the marked S1 components of the graph. These are the marked S1 components. Okay. Now, if these are 3 connected, you stop. If not 3 connected, then one of them or more of them might have 2 vertex cuts. So you again break the graph and you get the marked S2 components. Okay, you keep doing this. At the end, the leaves of the tree will be 3 connected components of the original graph, right? These are things we have discussed earlier. So the leaves are 3 connected components, that is the term we defined, of the graph G, or some of them might be K3 with multiple edges. We don't really care about these. They are planar. If the graph G is non-planar, then by applying lemma 10.34 repeatedly, one of the 3 connected components will have to be non-planar. So since G is non-planar, by lemma 10.34, one of the 3 connected components is non-planar. We have proved Wagner's theorem for 3 connected graphs. So by theorem 10.35, let's say the component is H. H has a K5 or K33 minor. So if one of the components, let's say in this visual, it is this dude. If H has a K5 or K33 minor, then H is a minor of this graph by lemma 10.33, which says that minors are preserved when you do this marked S component decomposition, right? So this graph H is a minor of this graph, and this graph is a minor of this graph, right? So we are applying lemma 10.33. By lemma 10.33, H is a minor of the graph G. But H has a K5 or K33 minor, and this is a transitive property. So G has a K5 or K33 minor. By transitivity of minors, G has a K5 or K33 minor. Okay, so by proving it for three connected graphs, we have proved it for all non-separable graphs. And if you prove it for all non-separable graphs, then you have proved it for all graphs, including graphs that are not connected. Okay, so that part is really easy. This is the trickier part where you have two vertex cuts. Clearly, one vertex cuts and zero vertex cuts are easier to deal with. So I won't even do that in the lectures. Are there any questions or concerns regarding this visual or what we discussed so far? Is it clear what we did?
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
can you please go a little bit up on the proof?
Yeah.
Where we show the K5 and K33 subdivision.
Okay,
Like,
sure. Yeah. Here.
So, are we assuming that all the vertices are distinct?
Yes, the vertices I have drawn in this picture, they are distinct. Because when two bridges are skew, it means that I can find 4 vertices of attachment, 2 for the first bridge, 2 for the second bridge, right? So it is possible that one of the vertices I have drawn is also adjacent to both x and y. So it is possible that you have another edge here. But I have not drawn those edges. What is true is that we have these 6 distinct vertices. X, Y, and the 4 vertices of attachment by definition of skew. And here we have 5 distinct vertices.
So I was wondering if when you contract the edge E, we had like multiple edges.
Right.
Then if we drop them, we would still be able to find these 2 subdivisions.
Give me a second. Right. So you're talking about dropping the multiple edges in H, right?
Yes.
Right. Let me think about this. So H is, yeah. So let's now go through the proof, dropping the multiple edges in H, and let's see what happens. I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to mess up the proof. So now supposing we were to drop the multiple edges in H. You know what I'm worried about? I mean, there might be a way to fix this. What I'm worried about is that if you drop the multiple edges in H, then to go from H to G, you have to first split the vertex Z, right, into X and Y. And then you also have to add more edges, right? So what could happen is you split the 2 vertices and you get a, let's say you delete some set of edges, F, okay? So without the edge set F, you could have a planar embedding, but then you would have to prove that if you put back F, give me a second. Okay.
Sir, I think
Yeah, go ahead.
we can't throw them away. Yeah, because we might be changing the entire graph.
Right. So that's the reason I don't want to throw them away, because then you change the graph a bit too much. Right. So I mean, one way, I mean, if you don't like multiple edges, which actually even I don't like, to be very honest, one way to get around this problem is to use a stronger theorem that in a simple 3 connected planar graph, there is always an edge that you can either delete or contract while keeping the graph simple and 3 connected, right? So long as your graph is not a wheel. Do you remember Tutt's wheel theorem, right? So what you could do is, if you don't really like multiple edges, you can use a stronger theorem by Tutt, and then you won't have multiple edges at all. So why don't you try that? Try going through the same proof. Instead of using Thomason's result, use Tutt's wheel theorem, which means that you will have to deal with wheels separately, but wheels are planar. So that's good, right? So rather than assuming that the graph has at least 5 vertices, you can assume that the graph is not a wheel. And now you can apply Tutt's theorem. But what's the problem with applying Tutt's theorem? Oh yeah, there is a problem. If you delete an edge and the graph becomes planar, then you need to deal with that situation. Whereas in this result, you don't have to worry about deleting edges. You can restrict yourself to contracting edges. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I think Tutt's theorem does not help here. Although it is a stronger result, in some sense, it is actually not a stronger result because it requires the deletion of an edge. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, I think it's better to apply Thomason's result, because then you will also have to deal with deletion of edges. And the power about Thomason's result is that it deals with contraction, and somehow contraction of an edge is easier to deal with in the context of planarity.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anyways, so that's a good discussion. Try to see if there are other ways to prove this result. If you find other ways of proving it, which are similar but yet different, please post it on Piazza and let everybody know. Yeah, I myself had this discussion with myself earlier about proving it using Tutt's result instead of Thomason's, and then I realized that deletion of edges was a problem. Yeah. Okay, good. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, if not, then there is one more part I wanted to discuss today, but I couldn't get to it because of time constraints. So I will have a short discussion about that in the next lecture, maybe about 10-15 minutes, and then we will move on to colorings. But we have essentially finished planarity. There is just one minor thing I wanted to tell you, which is relevant for assignment 3, and it also gives you a different way to visualize graph minors, which is useful. Sometimes this whole deletion contraction business is not very useful. There is another way to think about minors. I'll tell you about that in the next lecture on Thursday. And after that, we will switch to coloring graphs. And we will start with coloring planar graphs. In particular, we will talk a little bit about the history of the 4-color problem, which I suppose some of you or most of you would have heard about. Okay?
Sir, and when is the tentative deadline for the next assignment?
Good point. Yeah, there is one more thing I wanted to discuss with the crediting students. So the tentative deadline for the next assignment, I'm planning to give you more time for it. What I might do is I might do a bit of a poll to find out whether people want to submit it before the break starts or you want to submit it after the break. Since 2 of you who are crediting are already here, can you tell me your preferences? Let me stop recording first.